the winner is Michael Barrymore.
Strike it lucky!
Barrymore.
When you have the support and love of a nation, then no problem is unsolvable. Apart from death.
Michael Barrymore.
The British public loved Michael Barrymore. He could do no wrong.
He was part of a hugely successful type of entertainment, and he was the king of it.
Hey, what? What about?
What did Mummy and Daddy do?
Oh, you want to run the show?
He achieved the highest ratings. He won the most awards. He was paid the most money. But I think behind the scenes, he also had the most troubles.
I find it very hard to replace the feeling that I get up there, and it's impossible to live up there all the time.
For a person who's married, who's presented themselves as straight, to come out as gay was a massive, massive thing.
A very, very steep rise very quickly. And a colossal fall.
Stuart Lubbock was found floating in the swimming pool at Michael Barrymore's luxury Essex home.
My dad got absolutely committed to finding out what happened to my brother.
There wasn't a drowning. He may have ended up in the pool, but he wasn't going out that night for a swim.
If we dig deep enough, there's got to be somebody right at the top that's responsible for this cover-up.
Someone died here. There was a bungled police investigation, and it was everything toxic about fame.
Michael came from a working-class family and grew up in Bermondsey on the Dickens estate, just behind the river in South London.
I think he had a very difficult upbringing. I don't think it was very stable. There were alcohol addiction problems in the family. I think he had a very difficult relationship with his mother, from what I can gather. He felt his mother never loved him.
His father was a bit of a drunken bully, I'm afraid. So he didn't get on very well with him and really was quite glad to escape from that environment.
The only escape, I guess, was the television. So he would spend hours watching television and grew to love entertainers. I think in particular Norman Wisdom. He took a great deal of pleasure from watching Norman's early films.
The public warmed to him because of his working-class background.
I think he realised he could mimic Norman Wisdom and one day might be like Norman Wisdom. And I think that was just the beginning for him. I think perhaps the most important years in Michael's development as an entertainer were the years that he spent as a redcoat at Butlins. I think in the years that he was there, which was the early to mid-70s, Butlins was still a massively popular holiday destination for millions of families in this country. Package holidays hadn't really taken off at that point.
9,200 people come here every week, and hardly for a rest. There's organised entertainment, competitions and games every hour of the day. And a redcoat's life starts at 8:30 in the morning and ends at 11:45.
Entertaining at Butlins, you had to learn how to deal with a mass audience. You had to learn how to, 1 minute, run the knobbly knees competition in the ballroom and the next minute be running a kids' show in the children's theatre. Next minute, you're in the Gaiety Theatre doing a variety show, and then you're hosting a bingo session. So it was a fantastic training ground.
And may we remind all first-sitting guests that breakfast will be available at 8:30.
Oh, yeah. Oh, now, what was her name? Janice. When he arrived, he wanted to be a comedian, so we auditioned him. He did a few impressions and told a joke, and we put this into the Red Coat Show. It went all right. He got the feel of being in front of an audience, and at Butlins it was a big audience. Most of the daytime entertainment was predominantly audience participation.
Number 23, for God's sake, don't pick your nose, they'll go mad. Could you put your numbers behind you, please, girls? Don't blush because you'll get a red nose on the telly.
The slapstick way of dealing with people, a little bit of that possibly came from me. The entertainment's manager found him dangerous. One of the things that made him so popular as an entertainer eventually is because people watched and wondered what on earth was going to happen next.
As he became a very, very big star, if you imagine him in a red jacket, it would kind of be the same act.
One of the problems that we had at Butlins was that the staff in the other departments, in particularly the kitchens, were jealous, and they wanted to take part in the It's a Knockout, which was one of these sort of sporty competition things. Each of the teams had the house captain, and Michael Barrymore was made a house captain, so he cheated blatantly. And at the end of one of the It's a Knockout sessions, they grabbed hold of him and carried him forcibly down to the boating lake and threw him in it. The boating lake, well, it was really more soggy bread than water. It wasn't a healthy environment to be thrown into. And he was quite ill as a result. He was off for 4 or 5 days at least.
Michael met Cheryl in the mid-70s, I believe. I think they were both working together on the show business circuit around West End theatres and the kind of nightclub scene that was busy at that time. She was a dancer and a singer with some success, and I think she saw in Michael somebody with tremendous promise, tremendous potential, and I think she realised quite early on that with her help and guidance, professionally, she could make him a very, very big star.
You just felt that it was a fairly ordinary relationship. It was somebody who was clearly his rock, his business manager, and gave him the foundation to do what he does best, or he did best at the time, which was to entertain.
She was very, very hands-on. She was his manager, she was his wife, and was very instrumental in catapulting his career into the stratosphere.
When you're producing the Royal Variety performance, you always take a punt on a comedian that is up and coming. Because if they take advantage of the moment and that opportunity you're giving them, they can become an overnight star. And that's what happened to Michael Barrymore in 1983.
Good evening. You all right? It doesn't suit you.
He went on stage and I remember he pulled a lady out of the audience and proceeded to do Swan Lake with her. I mean, completely off the wall, especially on the Royal Variety performance.
The Dance of the Dying Swan was audience participation. I'm sure that that idea must have come from working at Butlins and seeing that particular routine that we used on the Knobbly Knees competition.
What's your game, girl? Well, we're trying to do Swan Lake, not the Nutcracker Suite.
That performance of Swan Lake in 1983 absolutely changed everything for him in an instant.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, your host, Michael Barrymore.
He had a quality that if you could bottle it, lots of other comedians would love to have bought it. He just engaged straight away with the audience with his, all right, all right at the back, all right at the back, all right at home. Strike It Lucky was a great vehicle for Michael because not only could he use his physical comedy because it was a huge set, he could run around, but also he had this great ability to tread that line between taking the mickey out of someone and actually having fun with them so that they enjoyed it as much as we, the viewers, did.
Andy? Nah.
One of the interesting things about Michael as a comedian is that he doesn't actually tell jokes. He gets great comedy mileage out of just talking, having a natural conversation with regular people, and he can make them funny. In truth, most people tuned into the show to see that rather than the game itself.
One I remember in particular where he had a fairly old lady, quite a small old lady, and he ended up picking her up and using her like a ventriloquist doll.
That's lovely. Oh! Say hello, Ethel. Hello! You want to be in Strike It Lucky?
No one else could get away with that.
The Barrymore show, or Barrymore as it was just called, was a show entirely without a format.
Whoa, 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 ease on down, I'm fine. Whoa, whoa, yeah, whoa, whoa, right.
It was literally an hour of Michael doing whatever he wanted to do.
No, I can't get him. Yeah.
The Barrymore show was an entertainment show, true entertainment. It had a mix of big performance numbers, big dance routines, big comedy dance routines usually, because Michael was involved, but also members of the public.
What did you say?
I said, oh, God, you're handsome.
No, you didn't. You didn't say that.
It was a very, very loose show in which he was given the opportunity and space to shine as an entertainer.
We also had 2 5-minute inserts in the show called My Kind of People, which were shot in shopping centres, and they were sort of mini talent shows. It was like the second coming. You know, Michael walked in, the place erupted. There were people hanging over the railings, shouting, all right, Michael. It was unbelievable. He was so universally adored by the public.
For the Chippendales and myself, see you next week, and I God bless. Thank you.
Barrymore was the biggest commercial name on television. I mean, he was a household name.
I think he won the first 5 Best Entertainer Awards at the National Television Awards for the first 5 years that that award ceremony existed. And that was just an indication of just how the British public had taken this performer to their hearts. The pressure of being number one, of being the most successful entertainment show on British television, being the number one host, being Britain's favourite entertainer, must have been colossal. That's when the escapism of drink and drugs must have been very enticing to him.
I used to look at myself and say, well, who am I? Who are you? And I dealt with it by drinking. And I remember being on the studio floor, we were recording one of the shows, and I kept obsessing about getting upstairs to my dressing room to finish the show to have a drink. And I thought, you've got it bad.
Michael Barrymore. Well,
the Comedy Awards is a very difficult audience, that. It's a room full of die-hard comedians, comedy writers, and one after another, performers would come on, receive their awards, and basically died in front of this room of comedians who refused to laugh. Came to Michael's award, Michael went up on stage and he knew straight away how he was going to deal with this, how he was going to play it.
Sitting there with his wife tonight, Charles, is also his manager, as you probably know. He's your kind of entertainer, quite obviously.
And he decided that Jonathan Ross was relying too much on his porter-prompt.
This autocue machine, is it? Jonathan, it's the 5th series of the Comedy Awards. I've been very fortunate. I've won quite a few, and I know you're going for it tonight. Yeah, I'm going.
And so the first thing Michael did when he went on stage was unplug it.
You don't need this. You really don't.
I remember it crashed down next to our table. Michael then proceeded to win the room over. The room was absolutely in hysterics.
When that happened on the British Comedy Awards, there was this audible gasp through the audience. Oh my God, what's going to happen now?
Tonight, Barrymore performs for the first time since a spell in an American rehabilitation clinic, helping him to kick the drink and drugs which threatened his life off stage.
I always find it very difficult to deal with life off stage. When I'm not working, I find it very hard to replace the feeling that I get up there, and it's impossible to live up there all the time.
Carefully overseeing Barrymore's return, Cheryl, his wife and manager, the woman who helped him dry out.
She sent me there. I went screaming.
You know, he was this supposedly devoted husband and they were very much a unit. Having spent time with him, he loved her. He did love her, definitely. But I think as it went on, we started to hear rumours. He'd obviously always had that slight campness.
It was a kind of open secret in the business that Michael was gay.
Of course, then there was the big night at the White Swan. The White Swan is a gay pub. It's where, you know, quite youngish gay men go. Michael had been there a few times, but sort of just stayed in the background. And this night he was quite drunk. The music struck up, New York, New York. So he goes up on stage and grabs the mic. He starts singing, starts spreading the news, I'm gay today. And the whole place erupted. They all thought it was fantastic and welcomed him and cuddled him and, you know, thought he was a hero. But quite a few of them did run off and ring newspapers as well. When we first got all these phone calls, everyone was going, Jesus Christ, you know, what the hell's going on? We dispensed, I think, at least 1 or 2 reporters down there to interview Michael himself. And he literally just sat down with the Sun journalist and he told him his life story. He basically said, I can't live a lie anymore. I'm gay, I'm homosexual, and I just can't live pretending I'm not.
It was a kind of open secret in the business that Michael was gay. It was whispered about in green rooms and production offices. So when the moment happened, when he actually stood on a stage, sang New York, New York, and announced that he was gay, I don't think any of us were surprised by that fact. I think what had surprised us was the sudden nature of this and the very, very public way in which he chose to do it.
We slammed it in for like the last edition of the paper. Cheryl knew nothing about it, and I'm sure she was actually tucked up in bed. I think we tried to contact her, but I'm not sure we ever got through to her. And I think she was probably extremely upset and shocked.
The tabloid media did their best to run salacious stories, you know, to push and to pull and to get people out of the closet. There was a post-war generation who ran the influence of the country who probably weren't as liberal-minded as they should have been. So him coming out, of course, it made headlines. sneery headlines, some rather unsavoury headlines at the time.
I suppose, in a way, you're open season now, and we can follow you about and detail every relationship you might have with some young guy or what you're doing in a gay club. And I just think he felt targeted and hounded, and one way was drinking too much and drugs.
At the 1995 National Television Awards, Michael, for the first time on national television, reveals his sexuality and talks about that openly for the first time. That's a very, very significant moment. I don't think we can underestimate how brave that was at the time, particularly with Cheryl in the audience watching him.
Cheryl was sat in the audience, as were we, the production team, and Michael expanded on his feelings about coming out.
I thank you for being my kind of people, and I hope that you'll allow me to live my kind of life. Thank you very much indeed.
I remember looking at Cheryl and seeing the look on her face. It was tragic, really, to see her expression. It was very sad.
If there's a wrong way to do it, a right way to do it, nobody does it like me.
She felt humiliated. They'd always been a massive unit. She was his manager, and he'd never really done anything without her saying. She would organise his whole wardrobe. So if they went on holiday, he was supposed to wear that day, this that day. That's the control. And then he'd gone and done this, and I think she was very upset.
It certainly made the dynamic of Michael and Cheryl more complicated for us. Did we go to Cheryl for decisions? Did we go to Michael for the decisions? It would always been a joint thing. And that's the first time I'd seen them have disagreements about what the show should be. We arrived at one very nice hotel, and Cheryl had a suite, Michael had a suite. But Michael had to go and check that Cheryl's suite wasn't bigger than his, and vice versa. There came a point where I realised that I needed to step away, and I didn't see Michael for another 20 years or speak to him for 20 years.
Michael, I think, was very keen to be seen as an all-round entertainer, a performer who, rather like his hero Norman Wisdom, could sing, dance, be a comedy performer. So My Kind of Music was an attempt to put him into a music show in which he could sing and perform with other people who could do the same.
Has Mum and Daddy got any secrets that you know about?
I can do a react of them when they're drunk.
Can you? Come on then, show me.
It's quite a good show, wasn't it? It was the perfect show for him because he was fantastic at interacting with kids.
Do you know how Mummy has babies?
She just cracks an egg inside the bottle.
Oh, she cracked an egg inside her body. And you know when you said that Daddy cracked an egg on her head?
It dribbled down into a throat.
It dribbled down into a what?
He has a kind of childlike quality in some respects himself. At the time, it was hard to think of anyone else who could possibly have done it better.
Sean was lovely. Sean, to me, was a very calming influence on Michael. He was sort of Michael's steady rock. They seemed very much in love, and he didn't need all the sort of sex and madness that he'd been having. Sean was a lot younger, but probably a lot wiser and older than Michael in some ways. They just seemed very happy together. And they told me how they were planning to have a surrogate by an actress friend who'd agreed.
You mentioned children there.
The process going through, but when the circumstances are right, yes, I would.
Michael said if the time's right, you can't think there's got to be that quality time as well with the kid.
Surrogacy at the time for gay people was very unheard of. And they told me it was already planned, the woman had agreed, and they were going to have this child, which never happened. Michael had started drinking again by then. And I think Sean wanted a more quiet life.
Things started to fall apart.
Sean had gone. A lot of people had deserted him, his old friends. He was lonely.
He obviously didn't have that rock in his life. You then become fearless and you become power drunk without the idea of the retribution that you face. And I think things certainly went downhill from there.
We used to watch Strike It Lucky. I can remember Stuart saying, "He's a funny bloke, isn't he?" when he was doing his Strike It Lucky thing on telly. Stuart and I both worked in a baking factory. At the end of the week, we used to always go out to nightclubs, me and Stuart. Work's finished, we were going to enjoy ourselves. So I came in. Stuart was looking out the window. Then I used to, looking forward to tonight. He said, "Oh yeah." He was on the downer really because he'd been told that he can't see his kids. I'd never seen him like that before. Really, I had a rotten feeling about that evening. I was always listening to my feelings. And I was a believer in tarot cards. I was shuffling them about. I just said to them, "What does this feeling mean to me now?" And I shuffled the cards up. I put one down there. It was death. We went into the Millennium nightclub. Stuart was the ladies' man. The women would just talk to him rather than me. Or if they saw me first, it would be, "Oh, hiya, how you doing? It's your birthday tonight." And there was a gathering outside the toilet. And I said to Stuart, "Well, what's going on there?" Stuart said to me, "Michael Barrymore is in that toilet." And he comes over in my direction, which is funny because Stuart is with me. I thought it was a bit odd, really, that Michael Barrymore should come over in this direction. And I get hold of Michael Barrymore's hand. I say, all right. He sort of like that. He smiled at me and said, "Who are you?" I don't know whether he was looking at Stuart as well, because I was just focusing on his lips of, "Who are you?" I think I was on the second floor for about half an hour. Anyway, I decided to give it up, you know, look round for Stuart, but I couldn't find him at all. And I went home, went to bed. Woke up next morning, turned on the telly, and I couldn't believe it. Breaking news.
Police had sealed off the entrance to Michael Barrymore's home in Roydon today after the man in his 20s was found in the swimming pool just before 6 o'clock this morning.
And I remember looking at this and thinking, oh, Michael Barrymore was in the nightclub last night. Stuart would love to hear about this when he gets home. The day was progressing a bit into the afternoon, and I text Stuart on his phone, "Are you okay, bruv?" And I think the police had Stuart's phone. There was a knock at the door. I just came in, they said, "Hello, can we speak to you?" Stuart was dead. I couldn't believe it. It took a while to sink in. Next up, they wanted to go and see my dad. And straight away, Dad sat down and he started crying. And I put my arm around Dad. He was more or less there. You're right now. I agreed properly for my brother about a month after it happened. Because I think before then, I was always back on my thinking, you know, Stuart will be back later. Stuart will be back in a minute, you know. And I was bawling my eyes out for 2 weeks.
It started with a curry with Michael Barrymore's then boyfriend, Jonathan Kenny. I think he was actually an estate agent at that time. And they went off to the nightclub in Harlow.
Barrymore and his friends met with Stuart Lubbock, a person who was unknown to him up until this point.
Obviously, Stuart went back with Barrymore, so he would tell everybody in work next week, everybody, never guess where I was. Michael Barrymore was. I think that is all he wanted.
They've taken Stuart Lubbock back to Barrymore's house in Roydon, where they commenced a party. He has been found dead in the swimming pool.
I mean, what happened? It's just a mystery. A mystery.
Drowned in the pool. Sorry? A fella's drowned in the pool. Are they still in the water? No, we've got them out. You've got them out. There's a party going on and someone's just gone out and found him. I'll tell you what, mate, the first time I've been out in 4 years, I have my kids every weekend. And, you know, you don't expect it, do you?
There was significant concern around the fact that Barrymore fled the scene at the time that Stuart's body was found. Now, there could be a number of reasons for that. One, he was Mr. Saturday Night. And two, he was high on drugs and wanted to get away from the situation. Or three, that he had an involvement in the death of Stuart Lubbock.
I phoned Mike Brown, my PA, my personal assistant, and I said, there's been a problem at the house, told him what had happened. It's going to be surrounded by press. Yes, I should have stayed.
There was no crisis management taking place. It was sort of running away from a scene and sort of trying to cover up.
It was to the exclusive Priory Hospital that Michael Barrymore fled for treatment. The stress of a traumatic weekend all too much.
If there's a crime scene, someone lying dead at the bottom of a pool, you've got to stay put. He certainly should have called a lawyer and not his PA.
This evening, Michael Barrymore was still in custody at Harlow Police Station in Essex, a few miles from his home, having spent the day with detectives. Barrymore had been arrested and cautioned early this morning before being driven to the police station.
You know, still this homophobic thing. So there was this massive gay sex orgy going on and all sorts must have happened. I mean, that was, you know, the sort of feeling in the office. I mean, Stuart Lubbock and his friends weren't gay, but of course, this only came out later.
The fact is, he wasn't gay. From the telly and from the papers, they were saying the wrong things about my brother.
Michael Barrymore was said to be hugely relieved tonight after receiving a police caution for using cannabis and allowing his home to be used for the smoking of cannabis. His solicitor said there'd be no further police action against his client. But the most serious allegations that the entertainer possessed a quantity of a Class A drug and supplied a Class B drug have not been pursued. It's understood Mr. Barrymore is now hoping to rebuild his show business career. So far, his popularity appears to have survived a series of highly publicised problems in his personal life.
I think Michael didn't know how to handle the press at the time. I think unwisely he chose to do a quite high-profile interview with Martin Bashir.
It was a car crash, as I remember it.
I mean, he is a total stranger who's clearly injured in some way in the pool, and you leave the house.
Yeah.
It's almost tantamount to a criminal offence, isn't it? You're like leaving the scene of an accident.
The prodding and the poking that Bashir did as a good interviewer, it's a calamitous moment that he wasn't equipped to deal with.
Today, an ITV spokesman said, "We've yet to make any decisions with Michael about his future."
I think ITV wanted to take a beat, work out what had happened, ask Michael what had happened, and try and, insofar as they could, get to the truth.
Corporate entertainment channels are slow-moving beasts. The question is, were they reacting to hard evidence, or were they reacting to gossip and rumour?
And now, here's Michael.
Asking the public to decide is a bit of a coward's route, isn't it? It would have been a big decision if they were to throw the man to the wolves. They probably didn't want the responsibility of being a catalyst.
ITV were reluctant to cancel the biggest moneymaker for ITV.
I think those of us that were working in entertainment television at the time weren't surprised when the decision was made to cancel Michael's show.
Experts were deployed in the investigation, including a member of the medical profession who was an expert in drownings. And it was their view that this was not a simple drowning. Stuart's injuries were such that there was so much damage to his rectum that it could only have been committed by a person and that an assault had taken place.
When Stuart Lubbock arrived at the A&E department and he was put onto the table, whatever they did to work on him, and the whole of the there were absolutely no injuries whatsoever.
His suggestion that the injuries were caused by medical staff are absolutely ridiculous. The pathologist had made it very clear that the injuries were sustained prior to death taking place.
Two of the pathologists concluded that the injuries were inflicted by a large object being forced up Stuart's bottom. To my mind, this was all part of the assault inflicted on Stuart.
Terry Lubbock's son dying under them circumstances and those horrific injuries that Stuart suffered changed Terry Lubbock's life forever, really. There wasn't a moment he didn't think of trying to get results. The party guests, the other 8 people that were there that night, not all of them attended the inquest. You know, really, they should have all been there.
One of them was Justin Merritt, seen wearing a baseball cap. He gave evidence at Stuart Lubbock's inquest about drug taking at the party.
Carly Merritt was the sister of Justin Merritt. She actually stated in the first inquest that Michael Barrymore rubbed cocaine on Stuart's gums. Barrymore denies that.
These injuries, sexual injuries or whatever, then that cocaine is also to blame. Whoever gave him that cocaine, you know, that tells me, look, something rotten has happened there that night, you know.
I don't know what was in Michael Barrymore's mind that night. The cab driver said he was intoxicated, drunk. Allegedly, Barrymore said in the car, I could do with a good fuck.
During the inquest, Michael Barrymore failed to answer any questions. But of course, we have to remember that he would have taken legal advice at that time. So he's probably acting on the advice of his barrister at the inquest.
My dad got absolutely committed to finding out what happened to my brother.
Somebody killed my son. They will not stop myself and my campaign for the justice that Stuart deserves.
I believe that he was put in the pool. DNA goes away. The pool was just a means for a cover-up.
Stuart Lubbock had been invited back to Barrymore's luxury home at Roydon near Harlow for a late-night party in March last year. His body was later found floating in the pool.
He had been somebody who'd been the top of his game in entertainment. He was so much in the public eye, and the whole story had been in the public eye for the last few years. The public would know who he was. It was a great story for a reality show. At that point, I think he just had a small acting agent in New Zealand because he wasn't doing an awful lot. We had a really good chat, but at the end of it, he sort of said, well, I get approached by quite a lot of these people and it comes to nothing, so if you're really serious, why don't you come out and see me? So that's exactly what happened. Going to New Zealand for the weekend was, a bit much. The creative director and I flew out to New Zealand. It was a long flight. We got there and had a brief meeting with him. A lot of those meetings is warning people how it works with a reality TV show. It was sort of referred to as the talk of doom. So you kind of tell them everything that can go wrong. He'd been through so much anyway. You might think the tabloids will be all over everything you've ever done. But with him, there's almost a feeling that they'd already done that, so there wasn't much else they could do.
My first reaction was wonderful booking. I mean, remarkable, that was going to make wonderful television. Desperation, naivety, grabbing at every straw to sort of climb back on. I mean, when you had that amount of fame, when you were the most famous entertainer, light entertainment performer in the country, and you haven't got that, that is your biggest drug.
It's really hard to put in context how much of a huge deal that show was at the time. TV was just so different then. You just all gathered around and watched TV at the same time, and all the papers would talk about it.
With all the bookings on Celebrity Big Brother, we tried to keep them as secret as possible. So with Michael, we knew that the press are staking out airports and they know exactly what's going on. They have people tipping off. And there's quite a lot of subterfuge involved. We flew him to Paris and then we brought him in on the Eurostar, like late at night. I had to go down there with a close protection team. So it really was quite exciting stuff.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Michael Barrymore.
When Michael got out of that car, he really loved the fact that people were cheering for him. People were genuinely excited that he was there.
I've got to say right now, he's getting a bit emotional there, clapping it up with the crowd.
Oh. Quite often during the casting process, when you talk to people, they're nervous that you're going to try tricks on them. Some reality shows do that kind of thing. And I think Michael did say he was nervous that we might put one of the Lubbock family in there. But obviously we assured him that we weren't that kind of show and that was never going to happen. Yeah. We put Jimmy Savile in instead. He didn't sleep there, that's good.
Oh, Jesus.
Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
Hello, nice to meet you.
How you doing? You all right?
Hi, I'm Chantal.
Hi, Chantal.
Hello.
Michael.
Mwah.
How you doing?
Yeah, really good. How you doing?
Oh, you're suited, aren't you?
I'm suited, yeah, I'm booted.
That year in Celebrity Big Brother, there was a twist where we put in a non-celebrity. So that was Chantal Houghton.
Want a cup of tea?
Do I want a cup of tea? I want a bloody bottle of wine. That cup of tea.
They decided that it would be very amusing to fool the other celebrities into thinking that she was a celebrity.
Oh, I'm shaking.
Well, no one was. Are you?
Yeah.
Maybe you need a light stiff drink, a light owl.
No.
The first thing I said when I met Michael Barrymore in the house was...
What?
That's quite funny. You just said, "What?" to Michael Barrymore.
That's just what you say to Michael Barrymore when you see him. I didn't know about his controversies and things at the time. I just was, just thought, oh, that's cool, he's very famous. Just an insane cast of people. People really did butt heads and friendships. I'm still in touch with Michael Barrymore now. I married one of the contestants from it for a very brief period.
None of us could believe that he'd come back from New Zealand. We thought he'd gone out to New Zealand and he was going to stay there. It was a gift for us that he'd come back. So we zoomed over with Terry to Elstree Studios to serve legal papers on it. They wouldn't let us in, basically. Well, they weren't going to let us in, were they? They were protecting him. He was back on TV, but it created a lot more publicity. It's a good sequence of events for us.
Nobody gets one sentence into an anecdote with you before you take it over and turn it into an anecdote about you.
I think there was some very strong characters in that series of Celebrity Big Brother, and it did lead to quite a lot of conflict. Michael was very much involved.
So I do all the cooking just for me, to be on the camera, to stand in the centre stage. That's why you do it.
Oh, George, why don't you move the kitchen over there?
You're self-obsessed.
Oh, come on, George.
That's
George,
what you are.
you're in this
That's
frame of
what you
mind.
are.
George, you're in this frame of mind because you've been nominated again.
I remember George Galloway just massively having a go at him because he'd had to quit drinking for being an alcoholic.
I'm an easy target to go for me
You're an
because of
easy
the outside
target. Pour
world. You're
me,
playing the
pour
outside
me,
world.
pour me a drink.
No,
Is that what you said?
no, I told you that.
Pour me, pour me a drink.
Fucking low.
You're out of order. Out of order.
Pour me,
you
pour
are
me.
out of order.
wanker.
You are out of order.
But what a fucking wanker thing to do. I find George Galloway quite a problematic individual anyway, to be fair, but I think that was a really shithead thing to do.
I remember Michael and Jodie Marsh arguing as well.
The vegetarians are wondering, because we've got meat left, that their corn is being used.
Oh, I'll tell you what you can do.
I'm being a mediator.
You can fuck off.
Do we can't eat meat, Michael. We're vegetarian.
Yeah, don't be condescending to me.
Well,
The thing with reality TV is, especially when somebody is cooped up in an environment like that, small things become a massive issue, and that is part of the joy of the programme, and that's what the viewer wants to watch.
You sit on there with a face like a sour puss over that side or this side, with a face like a slapped arse over in the corner.
I'm trying to avoid confrontation. Now you're following me to give me confrontation.
Is what you want.
Don't remember him arguing about the mints, but I'm surprised that he would engage in something as sort of like pointless as that.
You got all the attention. You happy? Hey,
That was both of them there, but small things, silly things like arguing over some mints, turn into a massive drama.
Bloody hell, I'm just sitting quietly minding my own business.
That's amazing, that's all over mints.
Barrymore doing Big Brother, there was a sharp uplift because I think a lot of people, despite the efforts of the Lubbock family, the audience develop a long-term amnesia and there's always a short-term memory loss.
Big Brother house, this is Davina.
Hi, Davina.
This is too much.
You are live on Channel 4. Please do not swear.
I think during the series Michael did really well. He seemed to go on a journey. He probably would have won if it wasn't for the romance with Chantal and Preston.
Chantal!
I think the reason Chantal won is because, of course, she was going to fucking win. So it's almost like that doesn't really count.
Please leave the Big Brother house.
If this was an exercise in trying to clear his public image, what better way than to just completely be yourself? The moment when he came out and come second must have just been such an incredibly powerful moment for him.
Ladies and gentlemen, Michael!
It was a super smart thing for him to do.
It's the best rehab I've ever been. I've been to 8 rehabs. That is the best rehab. You should charge.
Your runner-up, Michael!
Michael Barrymore arrived at an Essex police station this morning to face questions after being arrested on suspicion of murder.
I think then Michael realised this is never going to go away, they're never going to leave me alone.
Essex Police drafted a window of opportunity report. And this report identified 3 people that could have been responsible for the murder of Stuart Lubbock that were present in the house, in the area at the time. They've identified Justin Merritt, Jonathan Kenny and Michael Barrymore as being there at the relevant times. Barrymore was brought into custody at Southwood and Ferris Police Station, where he was given his rights by the custody sergeant, and he was then taken to an interview. I was brought into the investigation with another colleague because of our skills around interviewing. What you've got to remember is that Michael Barrymore was Mr. Saturday Night. We were brought up on Michael Barrymore, and they wanted somebody that wasn't going to be starstruck. It was quite a surreal experience. This person, who was the most popular TV presenter in the country, was sitting across 2 hard-nosed murder squad detectives. If Michael Barrymore was found to be involved in the murder of Stuart Lubbock, then he would face life imprisonment. So he was fighting for his survival whilst being interviewed. Stuart had sustained some significant injuries to his rectum, to a point that it couldn't have happened in any other way than a physical assault. We asked him questions around his sexual preferences, and he was asked whether he had inserted anything into Lubbock's anus. And it was at this point that he stood up, and he was very, very offended at the suggestion that he would have carried this out. At the conclusion of the interview, there was insufficient evidence to carry out any charges.
Basic police errors meant vital evidence may have been lost in the hours after a man died at the home of the TV entertainer Michael Barrymore. A Police Complaints Commission report says officers allowed people to wander beside the swimming pool where Stuart Lubbock's body was found 8 years ago. Also, blood samples weren't tested promptly, and 2 items that appeared in police photographs were never seen again.
The first investigation by Essex Police has been described to me as not their finest hour.
The initial report was of a drowning, and the officers that originally attended, they treated it as such. It wasn't declared to be a crime scene.
6 of the complaints made by Stuart Lubbock's father were upheld. The report concluded that Essex Police had not effectively preserved the scene. People had even been allowed to stay behind and tidy up. And 2 pieces of evidence, a pool thermometer and a door handle, were not seized and have gone missing.
Michael Brown, his personal assistant, was allowed to go back into the house and collect belongings for Michael Barrymore. It is suggested that at this time, evidence could have been lost.
The police let me down. They let my son down. We will get a result, I'm absolutely sure.
I was directing Piers Morgan Life Stories. It was mooted that Michael Barrymore was going to be the guest. And I must admit, I thought to myself, we haven't spoken for over 20 years. How is it going to be when I see him? I remember going to his dressing room just before the recording was due to start. I used to do that regularly when we were doing Barrymore. But there was a difference. Michael was less certain of himself. He was unsure, and he looked at me and he said, I'm not sure how to play this. And I said to him, this is Saturday night television. Go out and be Michael Barrymore. And I think he took that on board, because when he came into the studio, yeah, it was like he'd never left Saturday night television.
Talk me through what happened that night. People were drinking, taking drugs.
They were all having drinks. They said, oh, can we go in the jacuzzi? So I said, yeah, I've got to put the lights on, because otherwise you won't see where we're going. And then I went out there and had a drink. And as we walked out, I looked down and there's a Stuart floating in the pool.
Barrymore has cut corners with the description of what has actually taken place on that night.
I did not flee the house. I phoned Mike Brown, my PA, my personal assistant, and I said, there's been a problem at the house, told him what had happened. It's going to be surrounded by press. Yes, I should have stayed.
He did flee the scene. It matters not what way you describe it. He left the scene. He didn't stay there. He didn't wait to see the police officers. He knew what was coming.
I am innocent. I am not 99.9% innocent. I am 100% innocent, and I am entitled to walk around with my head held high for the rest of my life.
Everybody's clapping, they're going to fill up twits if the impossible happens and, it's discovered that Barrymore was involved. Michael Barrymore was just saying, I'm the innocent person, and this is why I'm innocent. He should talk more about Stuart. Tell us what happened when you got into your place with the guests.
I fucked up. What more do you want? I fucked up.
I get it.
I'm sorry.
It's come out very naughty word.
Look, Stuart will never get his life back, but you will never get the comfort of this being resolved, because it's hard to see how it will be.
But I have to live in hope that somehow, somewhere, there will be an answer. I hope it's in time, whatever's left of my life.
Yeah,
I think that's a very good performance. Michael Barrymore portraying himself as the victim, and he was not the victim. He is not the victim. It's Stuart Lubbock is the victim. That is just a great performance.
Detectives from Essex Police's major crime team have arrested a 50-year-old man on suspicion of the indecent assault and murder of Stuart Lubbock. The arrest comes after significant new information came to light. We believe someone, or some people, at that party know what happened.
Somebody doesn't want something coming out, do they? You know, somebody doesn't want to see someone charged and convicted of Stuart's murder. You're a super father.
An inquest.
That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing.
What do you an inquest?
Yeah. That's what they're doing.
That is what
Yeah.
I want.
Yeah. You want a new inquest, don't you? You want a new inquest.
Hopefully now we're gonna see some justice, because this is what all this is about. Not about me, it's about justice for Stuart, my son.
My dad was looking forward to a new inquest with Harry, and unfortunately it didn't happen. No, he died like he did. But in some funny way, my dad's up there right now. He's looking down on all of us, particularly me, and he's laughing in a way because Stuart's up there as well.
I'll see you when you get there, if you ever get there. See you when you get there.
We've been around to places, found interesting faces, whether young or old, no one left out in the cold. Take a long look around in places of renown, no one would wear a frown.
I think 30 years on, or wherever we are, it's quite easy to look back at some of the entertainment on that period quite ungenerously. I think the truth is, at the time it was produced, it was done in the best spirit.
We'll see you when you get there.
Michael Barrymore came from a time when you needed a kind of ringleader to just sort of say, all right, guys, we're watching TV, keeping everyone happy, mum happy, dad happy, kids happy, sort of guiding you through your evening. You know, if you want to see kids saying the funniest things, just go on TikTok.
If that particular platform had been around 20 years ago, I would have chosen it over going in the studio.
He's huge on TikTok. He's a very talented, warm, interesting, engaging performer, but he won't be hosting big Saturday night entertainment shows anytime soon, I don't think.
It's very sad Michael hasn't been allowed to resurrect his career, because I think he'd be fantastic on telly. I think people would love him. The only thing he did was he came out as gay. He's not been convicted of murder.
Michael Barrymore has never been tried by a court of law, and the assertion that he is 100% innocent has to be seen through, because at the end of the day, there is insufficient evidence to bring any charges against this man.
His career could never restart, because it has to be proved that he was no part of the actual tragic event.
I think it's going to be like this forever, actually. Just strange. You know, I've got to live with it. I suppose.
Stuart's name will be forever linked with Michael Barrymore. You know, Michael Barrymore was not going to shake off Stuart Lubbock, and that's a fact.
Perhaps with Harry's help, you know, we can get back in there with the no inquest, which will be really nice, you know. And my dad up there will be watching me as well. Guided and directed.
After 47 matches, just 2 teams remain. Australia take on India in the live ICC Men's Cricket Final in partnership with Sky Sports tomorrow morning at 8. Next tonight, Barlow versus Baldwin in that famous Corrie love triangle, the greatest TV of the 80s.